and accelerate their time to market, really getting into end customers.
Let's open up questions before I needs to leave. Is there any questions that you guys want to ask from NVIDIA, of NVIDIA, how NVIDIA collaborates? Sure.
Thank you, Rami. This is Santiago from the Economic Innovation Office in the US. I have a question. NVIDIA understand NVIDIA as a very powerful graphics platform, and everything that has screens has some sort of NVIDIA technology behind. So what kind of, you can describe the platform and how you help entrepreneurs use the platform and benefit from the platform and businesses around that platform?
I don't hear the question very well. So Ethan, please help me to repeat the question.
Sure. The main question was how does NVIDIA help out with the startups? The knowledge that was brought out that NVIDIA originally came out from screens and from smart screens, and what does NVIDIA do today?
So I didn't hear you very well as well, but so what I heard is how NVIDIA helps the startup and the startup ecosystem to get on the platform and use NVIDIA platform to the end customer. Was that any specific things that I missed?
So, and maybe also to talk about maybe things that people less know about NVIDIA, that basically branched out from smart screens to a whole different universe.
Okay, so really NVIDIA, that's a good question. NVIDIA really started with developing GPUs for really graphic and gaming. And what ended up about 10 years ago or 12 years ago, NVIDIA developed software that calls CUDA that can run on top of this, what we call GPU, graphic processor unit. And what ended up to be a very good processor to throw pixels on the screen ended up to be very good in developing neural network for vast majority of verticals. Because in the same way that you throw pixels on the screen, this is run in parallel. The same thing that neural networks that run in our brain needs to run in a parallel fashion. So DNN, what's called deep neural network, that really was developed 20, 30, 40 years ago under the name AI in general, was not able to be to run until the GPU or the graphic processor unit was able to run them in parallel. So the NVIDIA software, the CUDA, enable many professors in large universities in the US to run neural network. And it started in 2012 when one of the lead AI professors came to Jensen, the NVIDIA CEO, and told him that he was able to train neural networks to learn cats running on the GPU. So from that aspect, that opened to NVIDIA basically a large market that many of the neural net that runs in healthcare, a smart machine or autonomous vehicle today run with specific software stack on NVIDIA GPU.
Thank you, Rami. All right, so I think we should continue with us. So thank you, Rami, for participating today.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about Road2 over basically what you're seeing right now. Can you just put this on presentation mode? Okay, and can the people online see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so welcome to Road2. You're sitting here in a hub, which is currently filled with about 25 startups around us, all of them connected to our NVIDIA supercomputer, which is right to your right. Sorry, yeah, to your right, just behind the staircase over here, so you can actually go and see it later on. The supercomputer will basically cost $1 million and is equivalent to roughly 400 high-powered servers that helps crunch data and provide a lot of services to startups around here. So we'll talk about a little bit about Road2, what we're doing, and how we do it. Okay, so basically people ask us what we are. Are we an incubator? Are we a VC? Are we an accelerator? And of course, the answer to that is yes to all and none to the above. We're something new. What we are in essence, the hub to create early stage startups, to de-risk them, to create a lot of connections between them and the industry around them in order to help them accelerate. So we do have acceleration programs, but we're not an accelerator. We use acceleration programs as a kind of active due diligence process for us to invest. If we see that a company is good, we only see it after we work with them after a few months. So at a glance, the way we work, we provide basically three things to the company. We provide infrastructure, and we provide infrastructure. But in all honesty, we do a few things in addition to that. So behind me, you see a few of the partners. Again, this is a few of the partners that we have. And the way we work is as follows. What do I point to? Okay, wonderful. So the verticals that we work in are listed behind me here. What does the connection between them all is the AI. So regardless if you work in digital health or in Industry 4.0 or in energy and environment, if you're a data-intense company or need a computing power in order to operate, this is the preferred place for you to operate. And basically, the way we do, I said it before, with infrastructure, but in all honesty, what we do is this. We provide our AI infrastructure, which is homegrown here inside these premises. We also do a lot of annotation work and algorithm work. Incidentally, we use on the annotation side, we actually use employees that are on the autistic spectrum. So not only do we get high quality work on annotation, we also do good in the process. We can create jobs for people who are usually outside the scope of high tech. And what's going on?
Yeah,
anyway,
I think everyone is new.
I see, okay, no problem. So the idea is this. You saw the list of partners that we have. So what we do is this. The list of partners that we have, we come with them, and this is how we create the ecosystem. We come with them with a very simple offer. We say, guys, we offer you big companies hassle-free innovation that you need in order to survive and to move on to the next stage. And all we require in return are three things. We would like beta sites at your place in order to try out these new technologies. Number two, we would like access to your engineers to have a discussion with between the startups and the engineers to identify what is an absolute essential, what is nice to have, and what is something which is totally irrelevant, and let's not waste time developing it. And the idea is this: once we have a successful beta site going, and it takes a few months, and at the same time we're doing our actual due diligence and we're increasing the power of these startups. And if we have a combination of a good beta site, that means basically we have a customer. So we have infrastructure, we have a customer, and then we come in and cooperate with other VCs around. So, for example, Fadi, you can the hands up, please. Fadi is a partner of one of the VC funds around here in Haifa. Just behind you, there's another venture capital fund that actually decided to relocate its premises right over here in order to get a first-hand view as to what's going on here. And because we have such a fast turnaround of so many high-quality companies, all of them high quality, some of them fail the beta sites. And if they fail the beta sites, we know that they're not the quality that we expected, and then we go on with someone else. But the idea is that we create an ecosystem by combining a lot of elements from the various amounts of players that need to come and be active over here. So we're talking about the infrastructure, we're talking about the customers, and we're talking about the financing that comes afterwards. All right, I can't not go on without pausing for a second about the AI power that we bring on board. I think Rami talked about this in a very, very clear way. It's very difficult for companies such as NVIDIA and others to create and power at the grassroots level the way we do. And it's very difficult for us to create the power for the startups without backing, such as NVIDIA, as they do. And what we do is this: we've created a lot of partnerships on the data side. So, for example, we have signed, we're the only ones, I think, that we've managed to sign a partnership contract with Rambam, Israel's third largest medical center in Israel, and it's here in Haifa. Over 1,100 beds. It's actually larger than most of the hospitals in the US, with tons of data that can be used for the benefit of these startups. So such as the idea with Rambam, we created a lot of data points that can be used by the startups in order to create their venture. And of course, you're welcome to see the computer behind us. I see that I'm encountering a lot of technical issues today. Okay, we managed. So this is what we do in effect. I said we created acceleration programs with knowledge and accelerator basically and active due diligence process. We invest, but we're not a passive VC. And we also incubate and grow startups, but we're not an incubator. We're all of the above. Oh, yeah, please. Thank you. So we've been running the company's fairly new. We're, as Ami said, we're a little less than 2 years on the road. We've handled a little over 30 companies over the past 9 months. The first 6 months were kind of infrastructure building and building the entire concept. And this is the amazing thing. We took pre-seed companies. If you look behind me, we're seeing companies that have not raised a single dollar before coming over here. And after working with us, I've managed to raise over $13.5 million in less than 9 months. Now, $13.5 million is a large sum of money, but if you look at it from a seed perspective, where people are actually looking for $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 in order to start their operations, getting this amount of traction so quickly is a proof and a testament that the concept that we're using works. Wonderful. I'm very proud of where we are. It's probably you, right? I'm going to stop using this. We don't work in a vacuum. And as I said, when we try to create as many partnerships, we try to capitalize on the ecosystem that is around. And currently, it's like a little bit like a lot of islands that are not connected. And all of this data and all of this power behind me, once you connect the dots and once you have everyone collaborate and work together, and an example is This Thursday was the end of Innovation Week. We had a very big event over here with a few hundred participants from CEOs of companies around us, of unicorns, companies, startups valued at over $1 billion, with young startups, everyone here talking to each other, getting connected, mingling, and getting ideas and help from each other. That's basically the power of what I'm trying to show behind me. Kobe, can you please move to the next slide? You moved 2 slides, I think. Okay, but never mind. Let's just talk a little bit about a few success stories. So I think the biggest success story was in the numbers, but a few anecdotal ones. If you could just click again and we'll look at them all. All right. So one of the things that I don't ask from my partners, I'm talking about the Israel electric company, the French electric company, the Johnson Matthey in the UK, the biggest paint manufacturer in Israel, the biggest oil refineries in Israel, etc., etc. But I don't ask for them. I don't ask for investments. Because when you come as an investor and say, oh, please, you invest in my startup, you come on a different level. When you come to the level that we come, and you invite them to partake in the entire process of choosing the startups, of having your engineers of these big companies review and talk to these startups, actually work together and create a big level of trust. And what happened was, in several cases, these are just a few of them, that these companies actually offered to invest. Why did they want to invest in these companies? Not only because they solved real, actual problems that these companies had at their own premises. That's what the motivation was in most cases. But in some of the cases, they said, you know what, we want to be your distributor in Israel. We want to be your distributor in Europe or whatever. And that's another motivation for companies such as you see behind you, behind me at least, to see that these things actually work on a pure, practical basis. It's probably my finger there. It's me. It's not the clicker. Okay. Oh, wonderful. So my last thing before we open this up for discussion, and my call to action is this: it's easy to go and work and operate in the Silicon Valley, in Tel Aviv, in New York, and in Boston, where the ecosystem exists. It's super difficult to create one. But if you do create one, you create so much power and so much affinity that it's worthwhile. So my call to you is come to Haifa, but with your call to yourselves is this can be done. Creating the ecosystem from almost zero is possible at a very short time. All you need is the right people, the right collaboration, and the right ideas. So I'll open this up to discussion. Anyone that wants to ask a question online or off, please let me know. Questions, anyone? Okay, so either I was very unclear, or I was super, super clear. I'm scared of both, about both. No questions at all.
I would like to ask you something. One of the things that we try to promote in Europe is to bring companies from the foreign market to Haifa in order to help them to get access to their ecosystem.
This is a very important point. When we say come to Haifa, it's not because I want Haifa to be the center of the world, the focus of the world, etc. It's not, it never will be. What is very interesting for everyone is to take this idea and make it more global. So, regardless if you want to branch out on your own and you want to create your own independent ecosystem in Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, in Colombia or elsewhere, regardless whether you want to do that, I think it's very clear that everyone can learn from each other and everyone can benefit from collaboration with each other. So the more collaborative our nature is, and the more we look at the bigger picture, not only if I miss one deal in favor of another, and look at the bigger picture as what we're raising together, the more effective the ecosystem is. Because markets are global, there's no news there. The startups look for global markets, even if they do get a big customer in Israel or in one place in the US or one place in Europe or the Far East, they're always looking for to expand. And that's the opportunity for all of us. That's our motivation. So thank you, everyone. If there are no further questions, I'll just welcome you to Haifa today and to our premises. Thanks for coming.
This one.
Oh, sure.
How are you sustainable? How are you sustainable?
So, very simple, very short question. How are we sustainable? Basically, how do you earn your money, for goodness sake? So it's a good question. And the short answer is that we're not sustainable currently without a lot of support by the Israeli Innovation Authority. The Israeli Innovation Authority actually took a chance on a new concept which we created over here in Haifa, and has provided us 4 years of, let's call it startup money, in order to create an ecosystem which is strong enough for it to be sustainable. And the way we're trying to make it sustainable is by creating a de-risked portfolio which we invest in and which we ask partners together with us to invest in. And our main model is equity appreciation, just like a VC. But not only, we also provide services and value-added services in addition, such as the supercomputer over here, real infrastructure, business development, and connections that a small startup, talented, the people, as they may be, cannot do by themselves. So it's a great question. Thanks for that. Okay.
Thank you very much, Nathan, for your presentation. Thank you. I'm not going to fail on this. Again, I would like to thank Nathan, his crew for those wonderful facilities that they are giving us. And special thanks to Daphne and Dov as well for the fabulous Zoom equipment that they kindly granted us for today. My lecture today is going to be about a small issue which is related to the innovation model that we developed last year. And I'm going to start by some of the points that mentioned by Nathan. For example, the fact that how you said that, Nathan, that you're all of the above when you're speaking about incubator and accelerator. I think that you're above all, which is described much better what you do.
Okay, I'm still trying to figure out how to coin it in a very short term. If you can help me out on this, I'll be helpful.
I'm more a sharpshooter. I try my best. Okay, so Ethan said that developing a new ecosystem innovation or is not easy. Yes, most of our capital cities, most of our towns are not Tel Aviv or San Francisco, not Silicon Valley, not New York. We don't have advanced stock exchange around us or sophisticated angel investment forums. And this is the case in most of the countries that Kobe and myself are working with. And I'll just give you a brief description of the foundation that led to our development in all of the dimensions. Kobe and I started in a very, very different way. After many years in the army, Kobe came to the startup arena and started working with his own companies, and he thought that he's successful and decided to move into Europe. While going to Europe, while working worldwide, he understood that something is wrong with the system. In parallel, I was working many years abroad and came to Israel and tried to export the Israeli innovation model abroad, and it didn't work. It's not working because some of the things we are very proud about here in the Israel ecosystem, such as the development of the R&D, research and development of startups, are good. We can even, in some of the cases, manage to manufacture a good product or service. But we're failing all the time in the sales, marketing, and business development. We're not so good at that. We're not so good at America, we're not so good at Japan, we're not so good as many, many other nations in the world. So, from my point of view, I developed what I'm calling the customer-oriented entrepreneur, the vision that is placing not my product or service in the center, of course not myself, my ego, my company, but the customer, the client, the territory that we're going to sell, and all that arena. It makes much more sense because if we're going to take our ego out of the equation, we'll be much more successful. It's going to be likely for us to move in those markets. So when we're starting to speak about developing a national innovation ecosystem, we should not start and implement our model, but we're trying to, we must first learn what's going on. I'll give you an example. I chose a chapter, you know, the open innovation vision of the Americans and the way that they're trying to implement it in different countries. The Inter-American Development Bank, known as IDE, Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, granted a nice amount of money to a Panamanian fund in order to create open innovation in Panama. And it's not working because Panamanian and Latin in general are not so open in the way that they're communicating. They try to keep something for themselves. They are proud of what they're doing. The way that we're sharing knowledge in other societies, not necessarily in Latin America. It's part of culture. It's very part of culture. Like, for example, we know that in many countries, people are not very open to take decisions. They're trying to leave decision making to someone superior. And by doing that, you're not developing your middle management so strong. So what I'm saying is that when we're going to different markets, like in Sri Lanka, it might be Colombia, and of course, in the case of Myanmar, we're starting everything by the research. And we are searching for the local islands of excellence. Each country, whatever it is, each society has something that they excel in. And we have to start to develop it. We have to understand what it is. In many cases, it's not so obvious. I'll give you two examples. For many years, Nicos, people from Nicaragua, were very famous for phone frauds. During the era of the phone cards, they were expert in hacking old phone systems, and they made fortune about it. I think you're familiar with it. But we will take this expertise and convert it to something positive, such as develop something positive in the telecommunication arena. We have over there the island of excellence. The Dominican Republic, which I had the pleasure to lead for many years, is suffering from blackouts for decades. Poor infrastructure, poor transmissions, they're not paying for the electricity. The situation is really bad. So most of the companies started to develop what they need in order to be successful in their electricity. So there are a lot of generators, there are a lot of battery banks, and there is an expertise developed in the country for this case, especially. So if we can take all those diesel engineers, those battery technicians and experts, we can build like a nucleus of or a cluster of professionals in this area. So while we're going to a country, we're starting by developing and finding out what is the area of excellency. And around this, we're starting to develop all the model. The model, we call it Pentagon, we have 5 prongs. And the fifth, I'm going to go one by one.
You are on the background.
Okay, great. So first we have the entrepreneurs. They are the most important people in the business, aren't they? They are starting by developing their vision, their idea. They have an idea, or maybe something more than just an idea, maybe a prototype, maybe a product already made in one way or another. They're struggling to go to the next level. They need to have some cooperation, like in a place like this one. One point of cooperation is the second prong, which is the industry. The industry can benefit from this invention. The industry that can contribute to me, facilities, location, labs, engineering, know-how, machinery, and a playground for me to test. Then we have the academy. Local academy can be a university, it can be a local college, or even a regional or city high school. This, for example, was the case that we did in 2 cities in Albania, in Kemez and Podgorica. Over there, they didn't have a lot of things to do, and they didn't have a lot of sophisticated schooling system. So we worked with what we had, which was a little high school, like a vocational school, and we built everything around it. I did it once again many years ago in Yaoundé, Cameroon, for technical there, and it works good. The fourth player is capital. Capital is money. Money is it's not only banking. Capital is coming from many directions. Capital can be from angel investors, from the money of the entrepreneur themselves. It can be risk funds at different level, and in some of the cases, institutional investors. This money is what can help us develop and continue our business, and it can lead us during the time before we're having sales, and when we're having sales, in order to scale up to the next level. Okay, and the fifth prong of this system is the government. It can be either a local government, it can be state, it can be federal, or municipal. The importance of the government is important in most of the cases because they're placing the legal frame, they're placing the incentives for us as investors to start working with. And they are the ones that are all the time giving us support in what we need. They are also coordinating between all the players, bringing them together to the table, allowing and facilitating. Remember, the most important role of the government is not just to charge us taxes, it's to facilitate and regulate. And once governments are aware of their vision, of their position, of their needs, that's what they're doing. Okay? So once we have all those 5 players together on the same table, we have to start moving them to the same direction. And this is, again, a bit difficult because not all the players are seeing the same shared goal as all of us. It can be the government and think, hey, how can I make money out of this invention? How can we charge some taxes on the royalties that we generate here? The investors are thinking on fast round of their money. Some of them are thinking about the traditional banking model, such as lending money, saving your loans mechanism. They are not aware to the possibility of working with risk funds. Adam mentioned in his conversation the Innovation Authority and their way of thinking on this place as placing some money over here in order to help to foment the startup arena. Foreign governments have to think the same way. Each country that has its own innovation authority, like Pulso from Colombia, have to look at how can they place some money. Usually it's not a huge amount of money in distributed between many companies and helping those companies pass the first steps, the big steps. And the Israel Innovation Authority have what the previous CEO mentioned, he's saying that the Innovation Authority is the only agency which is risk ladder, meaning they love to take risks. They take small risks in many companies, and if some of the companies are failing, the other ones that are succeeding will pay for the other ones. And the ones that are already failed, it's not a complete failure. Each startup with 5 persons that failed, we have 5 professionals that have been graduated in a small school, so they can progress to the next one. And they create their own startups and not repeat the same mistakes again and again. Okay. So this is about the model itself. Some questions at this point? If no questions, I'm going to continue by describing a bit the model that we developed for Myanmar.
I just want to emphasize some points, with your permission.
As we built this model together, I just want to emphasize some points on my side, very, very important. When we are building this ecosystem in a specific place, we have to meet challenges. One is to attract foreign startups to be part of this ecosystem. We're taking, for example, undeveloped countries that would like to enhance the innovation in their place. One of the things that we are trying to do is to attract investors and startups from other places in order to open their operation in these places. One of the instruments to the government allocate is grants. So one of the things that we are doing, for example, in some places, we are trying to see if the government, they have some instruments to raise money for the startups from their own in order to have to open operation in their place. For example, I can take a very unique place in Europe that is doing that in a very huge amount of capital that they got from Israel. It's Poland. Poland got from the EU 82.5 billion euro for innovation. So the government decided to build venture capital that managing 80% of the capital from Israel in order to help startups to bring their technology to the market. But not only startups from the domestic market, they bring startups from abroad. They call that Poland Prize. 100 companies from all over the world can get 250,000 euro in order to start building their operation in Poland, Warsaw, Krakow, or Warsaw. This is one of the key points. The second challenge is the corporates. The corporates, they have needs, they have challenges, they have requirements. And one of the things we are trying to do is to see if there is any technologies that is already exist in the market in order to help them to build the connection between startups and corporates. But once we don't see that there's any startups that specialize in AI, medical device, energy, or other fields, we promote this model to other countries via our network. In GBI network, we have 30 partners all over the world. So we take this model and we promote it globally in order to attract other startups to collaborate with corporates. So in each vector that you see here, there's connection not only to the domestic market. There is a lot of connection between these sectors to other markets, and this is the only concept that we built together with Gabi, in order that, for example, Myanmar can get access not only to Israeli companies, to get access to all the 30 countries, 30 countries in the world that can bring their innovation in agriculture, in digital health, or other sectors. And so this is only some main points that I just wanted to emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you, Kobe. You really completed the vision in a very brilliant way. Now I'd like to dedicate the next 10 minutes to saying a bit about the model that we have developed in source in Myanmar. Unfortunately, our partners from Myanmar, which is the NCF, Myanmar, the Computer Federation, could not make it for the session today, but I think that we can loyally represent them here, and the ambassador himself. We have the pleasure of having the ambassador of Myanmar here with us. The ambassador, would you like to address this? The ambassador is very high person, typical for me, not very keen to stand on stage. So the case in Myanmar started with friendship that Kobe had for a long time with Moraine Dior, the Israeli ambassador in Yangon. They were together in the army, right? And we started to discuss with Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel about different ways to help some countries that they would like to assist. And they pointed us several countries, and Myanmar was one of those countries that the Israeli government would like to assist in some way in building their ecosystem, helping in any other way. At this stage, another Israeli company already approached the embassy and the Myanmar Computer Federation and offered some solutions, which were a bit complex, complicated, stiff, and didn't went very well with the local mindset. So we started by, as I mentioned before, learning what's going on. What do we have in the country? What do we have in Myanmar from the points of view of academic, universities, vocational schools, boarding schools? What's going on from the international region? How many international companies are present in Myanmar? Are they just manufacturing using cheap labor, or they're doing something more than that? Do they have anything to do with innovation? Are they implementing innovative technologies in the country? We checked out for the local companies and the vision of some of the local business persons. What are they doing? How they are going to develop it? In what area are they investing? We try to identify what's going on in the Asian investment arena. Are there any local investors? What are they investing in? What kind of budget do they have for investment? What percentage of the GDP is going for R&D? All those questions that some of them you can get out from looking at the World Economic Forum's details, and the World Bank statistics, and the CIA fact book, and so on. Some of them require an in-depth study of the country. Go, sit, talk with the people, understand, interview people from the government, many people in the local government, and you get into results, you get to an understanding, you understand what's going on in the country. Based on that, we started to develop a model. The first months of the project were to visit the government entities one by one and try to recruit them to join the efforts, to understand what they can get out as a benefit, not financial benefit, as a benefit from joining the gang, from joining this innovation center. So going ministry after ministry, in some of the cases together with the ambassador, in some of the cases with the guys from the NCF, etc., we increased our knowledge base tremendously, and we also managed to get some intentions. I cannot say more than intention from those companies, from those government officials, to participate in one way or another in the project. The next stage, which unfortunately we could not continue because we had a change of government in the country, was about to go to the public sector, to the private sector, and understand what they can get out of participating in such idea. Meaning to visit companies, to ask them about the challenges, and try from those challenges to build solutions. By the way, this is something that we're doing a lot, and I can tell you that in my humble company, I'm doing it today with some companies in the mining sector in Peru and Chile. We're placing like a landing page, like a website for challenges, meaning dear industry leader in the area of mining, please let us know what are your main problems, your main challenges. In the mining industry, it can be something like machines are operated in harsh conditions. They are not controlled very well. They are old machines without many sensors, and we don't know when the machine is broken. Broken machine can paralyze a mine for months until you bring your replacement is damaged. Companies that are working in wells, for example, here in the Dead Sea, they have pumps around the Dead Sea that are pumping water in order to dry out the salt. And later on harvest the salt out of the pump. Some have to go manually with a truck, place fuel on those pumps, tanks pumps. They didn't have any mechanism to know what's the level of fuel in the tanks, if they can change the schedule. So by receiving all those challenges, we can start asking the industry here in Israel, what do we have as a solution for those types of challenges? We can go and do scouting for new technologies. And the solutions are being connected directly from the Israeli provider. It can be not Israeli, it can be European, as in the case of Kobe's companies. And then go and they're connected directly to the company for asking for the solution, and they can interact directly and see how can they solve this challenge. Okay? So the very same thing is being done in a country like Myanmar. I can tell you that some of the negotiation between us, especially with the government, were about the location of the center. It's going to be in Yangon or in any other city. There are some cities that they have more needs. And we have to decide, it's like we're going to Tel Aviv or we're going to Haifa. We're going to place the innovation center in a far city without any facilities around. It might be better because the cost is lesser. You can get much more personnel. But are they qualified enough? Those are questions that have to be asked in all those stages. And I think that the best way to do it is in an open discussion with government, with decision makers, and again, we can achieve those types of cooperation mainly based on those types of understanding. Questions, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, please, Mr. Ambassador.
When task is to coordinate between people who have problems and who has a solution for those specific problems. Is that your main function?
It's much more than that. The basic idea is to develop locally an ecosystem, meaning to start with the local startup that you have in your country, and with them alone, and show them the way that we're doing it. So one of the ways to do it is, let's have a discussion between the local startup, in your case, the Sri Lankan startups, and the public and the private sector, the industries are working in the country. And not only in Colombo, all over the country. So imagine yourself that, you know what, let's take the case that we have right now in front of us. It's not a secret that Sri Lanka, the country of our honorable ambassador, decided to go on a remodelation of the old computer planes, the combat plane made and sold by Israel aircraft industry many years ago. And the Israeli aircraft industry gained the tender again for the remodelation. I'm sure that if we could be part of this, we could sit with the local entrepreneurs, local business people in Colombo and understand what they have locally, machinery, equipment, know-how, technologies. And I'm sure that we can at least do 20 to 40, 50% of the project locally and leave this money in Sri Lanka without paying it to a foreign country. So this is possible only in cases where you have an open discussion like that. So let's say that we're going to place, in your case, a kind of challenge page in a secure location in the internet. And the Sri Lankan Air Force can place on demand. We need remodelation of wings. We have need for pneumatic system repair. We have hydraulic system. We have fuel system. All the systems that we have in the plane and all the problems that they have in this. So instead of sending it to be done here in Israel or by Israeli technicians in Sri Lanka, you can identify a huge bank of Sri Lankan professionals that can provide solutions. Maybe with the supervision of someone that knows these planes from these crews and all, and maybe even we can share and sell and participate with this knowledge so we can in the country. So this is the idea. The idea is to develop the country. And let me please, if we touch this point, I'm going to explain something which is not very known. For that, I have to go up the stairs here, just to show my point. The World Economic Forum divided the world into 3 steps, 3 layers of countries. There are countries that are resource-oriented. Those are countries that are built from the ground, meaning mining and agriculture. They're not manufacturing anything, nothing like that. Most of those countries are what we're calling third world countries. Countries that are in development, which is a clean word for underdeveloped countries. In the middle layer, we have countries that are innovation-oriented, efficiency-oriented. They're working with their hands. They're manufacturing. They're the ones that are making our suits, our clothes, our machineries, and they are not using much of their brain for these stages. In the upper level, there are the innovation-oriented countries. And innovation-oriented countries are the ones that are working with their brains, the ones that are developing intellectual property. If there's one sentence that I want you to get out from this session to your respective countries, is that a country that is not developing intellectual property is doomed to misery. With your permission, I'm going to repeat. A country that does not develop intellectual property is doomed to misery. Meaning the only way for countries to move out of the groundwork, agriculture and mining, and move out of cheap labor, of shoes and textile manufacturing, is by working on innovation, is by developing innovation in the country. What we're trying to do is to assist in our humble power to develop those types of innovation in your countries. So it's not going to be Israeli innovation or American innovation. It's going to be Sri Lankan, it's going to be Colombian, it's going to be Burmese, Bulgarian, or any other country innovation. By doing so, it's not giving you a fish, it's going to be to give you a fishing rod for you to fish forever. And I think that that is going to be the most important thing that we can get out of this session today. Help us help you develop your own innovations. Okay. Okay? Yeah? So I think we're about time for a short coffee break, right?
Yes.
And after the
15 minutes.
break, we'll come back for a session with the Chief Innovation Attaché of Netherlands in Israel. She will be speaking over Zoom, and looking forward to hearing her. Thank you.
Rolling watch.
Kobe, can you hear us? Kobe?
Yes. Yes, Christian.
Hi, Kobe. I didn't get it. Is this a pause?
Now we are in the coffee break, and we continue in 11th. The whole party can introduce itself.
I barely understand you. Okay, so it's a break. Okay, I understood.
Yes, it's a break. I'll send the message to all the guys.
Okay, thank you.
going.
Kobe. Hello, Kobe. This is Cloud. Good morning.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, Kobe.
I'm fine.
Less material than the website.
Sorry? Yeah.
If you want, I had then I will come to you. This time. Yeah, sure. I think we have since we have cards. This is my so I'm going to Austria. So you work together. That's right. So usually both for traveling, both for teaching, giving the information. What was taking care yeah, different dice. That's right. That's it from the bottom. So what we're doing like this is now after the yeah, that's right. So we had that from the things I gathered. That's the first stage. Like, and you were reaching the level. Right. This lesson is learned. And now what just stuff, application, that, calculated, for that you need the government, okay, in case of Sri Lanka government support to have the free and space, government or private. For example, we discussion about the company if you go to my presentations 4 or 5 years ago, you see that the role of the government but again, if we're talking about countries like then we keep out privatization. So you are not going down seed money or interest fund to start the center from the beginning. Meaning if I'm coming money to the project, you are taking money off the project. I can come to the money. After I have network impact, the government saying yes, as usual, you have players then we can go simple up. So you will invest it and you will my profits delivering knowledge then The company managed to find customer and buyer for the company. So it's very straightforward, it's very open. I did You are talking about activities in Sri Lanka? Yes. Because you have to show that you believe in the local a line of export So we have decided to that. Yeah. Okay. So
ספציפית עצמאים, כמו ששנים לא היו בשלב המתאים, ועוד אחת שכבר קצת להיעז.
So let's have a proper discussion.
מעולה. נעשה איזה שיחה. יש לכם באתר פה? מה שמתעסקים ב-AI זה מאוד מעניין. מצגות שהן לא טכנולוגיות, לא אימפקט שרק אישור וגדול לשלם לזה, אבל לפעמים מצליחות יופי, מנדי למשל. ליפה, אבל מה סתם? גם אני משתמש, אני אחרי זה לרוקו ללימזה, סלאק, גם אני צריך, אבל ממש ממש טוב.
רגע, אני צריך עכשיו לבאס.
Oh my כתבנו, עשינו שיחה, אני באתי לך. גם את כל גם את כל. בסדר?
Thank you. So you were controlling the from the beginning. See how we're with time. 24. From the beginning to the proper establishment of the center, what is the time on a normal circuit? I'll show you.
העניין הוא באמת להפעיל את זה בצורה שיהיה דיאלוג שביזור, סיבוב משחק, לא צריך להגן, לא, לא, זה לא כמו יואל, כמו אקסלרטור תגידי עוד כן, שהם עושים בכל הזמן, יש להם גם בזום וגם יש להם קורסים של כמה שבועות, זה נקרא, זה פה, כן, עכשיו אני לא בינואר.
עם הקליקר, כן, בוא שנייה אחת כמו המצגת שלה. שלה או שלה? היא קצת לא בגלל, אז אין בעיה. נפתח את זה פה. מה האימייל שלה? גבי.
גבי, מה האימייל שלה? מה האימייל שלה?
חשבתי זה ממני. ממך. באינפו? נראה לי שכן. מתי שלחת? עכשיו, לפני איזה שעתיים. אוקיי, אפשר כבר לעשות share, full screen.
איפה אתה יושב בזה? שם? אז אם תשים את זה שם, זה לא צריך להיות.
אני לא יודע מי שם את זה פה, אני הגעתי, ראיתי את זה.
אני לא מבין. תקשיב, זה...
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We would like to continue.
יש לי שיחה קצרה ב-12.
אל תכול למעלה. או שאתה יכול להיכנס
אין, לא רוצה לעשות. קובי, תעשה רק שער, יש לי.
אתם ממשיכים את הלו"ז? אני רצה, כן.
Please take a seat.
יש לך 4 אנשים שרוצים להיכנס, אתה ראיתי פה. תעשה אדמיטול. כן.
Okay, we are a smaller group now, so I may speak without a microphone. Yes, more intimate.
No. You need to use because the other don't hear you.
No, we have a wireless one.
Okay. איך אני מעלה אותך?
זה אני אשאל אותך.
קובי, אתה שומע אותי?
שומעים
אותך. אוקיי. אני פשוט לא רואה אתכם גם. Okay, is it possible to go to the first slide?
Yes, please.
Is it possible to go to the first slide? Because now you're on the third.
לא עובר. הסברה בכוח.
קובי?
כן.
אתה יכול ללכת לשקף הראשון, כי אתם בשלישי.
כן, רק שנייה.
Okay, so we have with us.
הצד השני.
We have a Heritage. She's the innovation attaché of the Dutch embassy here in Tel Aviv. We're also running the innovation center Holland Israel. Racheli, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much. If it's just possible to go to the first slide so that I can, I don't see you and I don't hear you so well. So I'll do my best. No, to the other side, to the first slide, please. This is the third, the other side. If you can go to slide number 1.
This is the first slide.
Yes, please. This is the first slide. Okay. So what I'd like to do in a couple of minutes yes, this is great. Okay, what I'd like to do is I'd like to tell you a little bit about how an actual innovation center works. And it's a case study for you, how we did it in the Netherlands. So my name is Racheli, and I'm part of the Netherlands Innovation Network, which aims at connecting innovation worldwide from a Dutch perspective. And I am in Israel. I work at the Dutch Embassy in Israel. First, the next slide, please. So, as I understand from Gabriel, and thanks for having me, Gabriel, that you're learning about the innovation ecosystem in Israel. And among others, it is often also about people. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about my background, so you can also see how I developed into this field. So I'm originally born in the Netherlands. And as you can see, I mark this with these wonderful and lovely windmills. And I write next to the first bullet that I excel because my life in the Netherlands is very good. And then my parents decided we're going to immigrate to Israel. So I'm a new immigrant, which is part of becoming an innovator at a later stage, but I struggle. And you can see on the right-hand side, you can see a picture of probably new immigrants, probably one like that. Then I went into daily intelligence service through my army period, and I excelled. I had a very good time. I was really very successful in my work. And then I decided I was going to study. So I did a BSc, a bachelor in biology, and I had quite a difficult time and I struggled. Later on, I decided I was going to focus on one of the fields that I encountered at the end of my studies in Jerusalem, and that was bioinformatics, if you remember the Human Genome Project. And following that route, I started a master in chemistry at the Technion. And even though moving from the Hebrew University to the Technion was difficult, I actually excelled in that period. Then I was, I would say, a theoretician. I could model three-dimensional structures of viral proteins like the ones that we have now with COVID-19. And I really excelled, but I understood that I have to do also some experiments. You know that with COVID-19, we see a lot of experimental results. So I decided to do a PhD in biotechnology and microbiology at Tel Aviv University. And wow, I really struggled. And at some point I decided I was going to do an executive MBA after my studies. And again, I struggled. Here I did not even excel in between. All of this led me to a new phase in my life in which I feel that I became an entrepreneur. I could now, with all the experience that I had, excel and struggle and excel without losing my balance. And in the next slide, you can see how I turned this into a professional career, hopefully from which you can also see some of the things that one can do. So first I was the head of the bioinformatics unit. Bioinformatics at the time was associated with the Human Genome Project. We knew a lot about the biology of different organisms, and we thought that, wow, we will now understand disease susceptibility. We could even make sure that COVID-19 would never hit us. There was, of course, a disappointment in that field, but that was at the time a lot of innovation. Later on, I moved forward into the world of the collaborative research projects. These are projects that are financed by the European Union, by the European Commission, and Israel is an associated country. And having this important triangle between funding and excellent projects and consortia or groups of people stemming from different countries that will work together, this is the way to develop international collaboration. And for the last 6 years, I serve as innovation attaché at the Dutch Embassy in Israel. And one of the things that I established, you can see the logo on the right-hand side, is the Israeli-Dutch Innovation Center. And having an innovation center can help me direct the bilateral activities. In addition, coming from the world of the EU projects that you can see to the left of that, there's always an advisory board. And therefore, I think that when you establish an innovation center or you want to do something, it is important to also have experts that will assist you in that. And therefore, there is an advisory board of the Innovation Dutch Center. In the next slide, can you move to the next slide? Yes. Thank you. In the next slide, I'll show you now the focus of the Netherlands in the field of climate change. What is the Dutch policy in that field? In the next slide. So when I started my work as innovation attaché, I thought this is great. The Netherlands for sure has policy, and then all I need to do is to map the Dutch policy versus the Israeli policy. I will see where there is an overlap, where there is competition, and where there is actually complementarity, in which I was more interested, because once you see that there is a gap that can be fulfilled by, or that can be filled by competence from the other side, there is a way to work together. But I learned that the Netherlands indeed has a clear climate change policy, but in Israel, things are a little bit different. So what does the Netherlands have in terms of the energy and climate change? It focuses on 4 different complementary goals. One is it wants to make sure that it has the production systems in order to produce the new energy forms, such as hydrogen, or any other electricity, any other energy, which is based on renewables. It also wants to balance the supply and demand of energy, not having too much and not having too little. And therefore you need to monitor and forecast the use of the energy. If you have excess of energy, you have to find ways to store the renewable energy, for instance, wind energy or solar energy or tide energy. And you also want to use sustainable biomaterials. So the Netherlands has very big goals. And in the next slide, we can see how they will be realized in a time frame that we all talk about today. I see a combination of the 2 slides. So what will the Netherlands actually do? So in the year 2030, it aims at
Okay, we lost you for a second.
Sorry?
We lost you, we can continue, please.
I cannot hear you. I'm sorry, say it again, please.
You can continue again, we lost you for a second.
No problem. So I'm on this slide, okay? So if we have very broad goals, now we will look at them more specifically so that we can understand what the Netherlands wants. So the first point is that by 2030, they would like to lower the emissions by 95%. And therefore, the first figure that you can see with the windmill is a policy document in which they clearly write how they're going to reduce the national greenhouse emissions. Now I'm showing you, and I will show you I will point out the points, but you can see also the figures that are associated with them. So the second thing is by 2050, the Netherlands would like to have a carbon-free electricity system. And it also would like to have a carbon-free built environment. You can see here a building which is fully covered with plants. It would also like to be carbon neutral by reusing raw materials. And by 2050, it would like to be zero emission in the field of mobility. And last but not least, it also would like to be a circular economy, an economy where there is no waste and every input is or every output is the input for the next step. So the Netherlands has these big goals. And in the next slide, I will show you how we try to translate these into action. So we're talking about innovation, about policy, and now what can someone who is now operating in the field of policy, how can one implement that? Okay, so the first thing that I think that was feasible was to transfer knowledge. We always have to ask the question, from which country do we transfer the knowledge to the other? In the field of energy, it seems logic that there is a lot of knowledge that can be transferred from the Netherlands to Israel. In other fields, such as cybersecurity, for instance, I believe that you can transfer knowledge from Israel to the countries in which you reside. So if we talk about hydrogen and knowledge transfer, then I developed several, I would say, learning activities. One was a basic course, what is hydrogen? The other one is a series of Dutch-Israeli mini symposia in which you have 3 Israeli speakers and 3 Dutch speakers. And I believe you can do this also with the countries in which you reside. Have 3 Israeli speakers and 3 speakers from your country, and then you already have exchange of information. And the last thing that I did during the summer was a summer school on the development of hydrogen galleys, which are actually ecosystem. In the next slide. In the next slide. So we trained over 750 people, or there were 750 people that registered for these activity, and we trained 350 people. That's a lot of, that is people having so much encounter with having encounter with so many people could eventually also lead to collaboration and to the next steps. And here you can see how we foster collaborations in the year 2022. First of all, look at speaking engagement for Dutch hydrogen experts when there is a certain topic on which Israel focuses, and then we can bring in an expert from the Netherlands. We can continue the Dutch-Israeli mini symposia in which we have the 3 Dutch speakers and the 3 Israeli speakers. Now that Corona is a little bit more under control, we can also start planning an Israeli delegation to the Netherlands in the field of energy transition and climate, planned for Q1 or Q2. We can also contribute to Israel's national hydrogen agenda, something that Israel would like to develop. And last but not least, we can also provide Dutch knowledge and maybe also technology and infrastructure for pilot projects in Israel. So if I will summarize, what I've shown you is that in an innovation center, one of the things we can do, we can follow the policy of a given country, we can implement it in the best way we can, and understand that as long as we are fulfilling market needs, we hopefully have also an impact on the further strengthening of the bilateral collaboration. This is, in the next slide, you can see, in the last slide. Yeah. In the last slide, you can see my contacts. And I'm sorry that I'm not physically with you because I would like to see you. I see now my screen and I see a picture of Kobe, but I wanted to share this with you.
Okay, thank you very much for your intervention today. It was very lively. We can see that innovation is not only coming from Israel out to the world, but also sharing knowledge from the world in Israel. Just to give you a little example. Okay, now we have a screen.
I cannot hear you. I cannot hear the question.
Any questions?
Can you repeat the question?
Any questions from your side, gentlemen, ladies? Okay, I guess no questions from our side.
Okay, then thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kelly.
Oh, we have a question.
Sorry?
I just want to say thank you very much for a very professional presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
You can always learn from each other.
Definitely.
I wish you a continued successful program.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
So again, thank you very much. Just to give you an example how this international knowledge share is being done, as Kelly explained, I'll give you another example. In Israel, we discovered some natural gas on shores several years ago. But in this day, we don't have a lot of knowledge on how to manage it. And Argentina, for example, a country that we don't think on them as innovation leaders, have a lot of experience, more than 50 or 60 years in the business of storing, compressing, transporting, depressurizing the natural gas over its way of distribution. So several years ago, I arranged a session like this one. From the Israeli side, we have many people from the Ministry of Energy and Natural Infrastructure. And from the Argentinian side, we brought some leaders from the industry to explain us about how things are being done in their countries and how can we build. And it was interesting enough to see that most of the questions were about regulation. The government is trying always to regulate, to see how they tax our stuff. So this is another example, and there are many, many examples that we here in Israel can study from your countries, from your experience, and we're looking forward to it. I would like please to call now Kobi to continue. Kobi will present himself and of course the participants from the GVI network worldwide. I'm going to add Ms. Kira, please. Yeah, can you see? Yeah, sure.
Okay, guys, I would like to present my colleagues that can join us in this event. Let me start with the first Germany. So, here you guys, please introduce yourself.
Give me 1 second.
Andreas? Okay, yours from Spain. Please introduce yourself and the connection between Spain to GPI. Some words about it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Urs Rothmeier. I'm originally from Switzerland, but living in Barcelona since more than 25 years. I am a corporate innovation and entrepreneurship consultant with more than 25 years of experience. I'm also a serial entrepreneur, startup expert, and I'm running the Founder Institute's chapter here in Barcelona. That's a business accelerator that I brought from the Silicon Valley to Barcelona. So far, we accelerated more than 80 startups. I'm also a venture partner at the Corporate Acceleration Services Unit at ESADE Chiropolis. This is a business and innovation center from a business school here in Spain. And I also leading a small venture capital fund that invests in startup. I'm happy to help you if your organization wants to find the right startups or scale-ups, strategic partnerships, or any other collaboration with corporates, public institutions, as well as investors here in Spain. Thank you very much for having me.
Christian from Austria, Christian Dover. Yes, Christian, also is yours. You're on mute.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome also from my side, from Vienna. My name is Christian Boder. I am an entrepreneur, business angel, and investor, mostly focusing on digital health and medtech. That is also one of my backgrounds, healthcare, and the other one is renewables. Now, in the last years, I focused mostly, as I mentioned, on digital health and medtech. I'm also a board member of the Austrian Private Venture and Capital Organization. I'm leading a family office, and as I already mentioned, I'm also investing in startups as a business angel. Beside that, Kobe and I have developed in the last years I2A, an accelerator program which helps startups outside of the European Union to participate on the European market. So we are hands-on working with them mostly on reimbursement strategies, on regulatory affairs, and also helping them to get access to the public funding, which you all know is very well placed in Europe. Happy also. Thank you very much for having me, and welcome all questions from your side.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sławomir Kościak. I spent over 10 years in the asset management industry, investing in publicly listed equities in Poland, but also outside of Poland, internationally, EU countries, United States. Last 6 years, I specialize in investments in life sciences space, in the healthcare space. And quite recently, I started operating as independent healthcare business angel. So this is my area of interest, life sciences, medtech, biotech. And basically, I scout for perspective, innovative ideas here in Poland, searching at the Polish universities, but also like small startups, private startups. And I become part of the startups and help them to grow to take the idea to the publicly listed companies. Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Fabrice Testa. I'm based in Luxembourg. Actually, I'm a serial tech entrepreneur. I'm also a business angel. I'm the chairman, for example, of IBAN Space. IBAN is the European Business Angel Network. I was a former board member of the LBAN, Luxembourg Business Angel Network. I'm also a senator at the World Business Angel Forum. And I'm also a mentor, coach, part of many national and European programs. Yes, so my expertise is really into digital tech, space tech, and clean tech. And Luxembourg is a very small country, but it's attracting more and more startups. They put quite a lot of money in different infrastructure. For example, the European High Performance Computing Center is now in Luxembourg. So I think it's a good place for a startup, an Israeli startup that would like to penetrate the European market to start with Luxembourg. There are also some national funding schemes, and I will be happy to help in that respect. Like also, I'm always contacted a lot by different companies that probably will be also interested by the Israeli market. So thanks, Kobe, for the invitation, and yeah, happy to connect with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Sertaç. I'm from Turkey. I live in Istanbul. I'm coming from a corporate background, worked in different, completely different topics and companies like Unilever, Alcatel, and finally Bosch, I would say. And working also on the startup environment, mentoring different startups in a university incubator here in Istanbul, and also helping some other startups and scale-ups in other technoparks in Turkey. And yeah, happy to be here and connecting with everybody. It will be great to connect with relevant people and to help each other to create value for all startups, to reach corporations, create their business, and reach their target markets. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello, this is Klaus in Germany. I'm a marketing professional here in Germany, based near Frankfurt. And when we look at the world, we always try to find a market and then to find and implement an appropriate solution. So therefore, we cover the areas marketing, consulting, supplies, sales, and implementation of projects. And for technical questions, we have our own engineering company. Now, when we look at the world, we see that Germany is, of course, a little bit bigger than Luxembourg, but we have a big need in various issues, and therefore we are always looking to Israel and other high-tech countries in order to find a technical solution there. It could be in energy, IT, in cybersecurity, in healthcare, in medical, and a lot of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and so on. So a lot of needs, which always shows that we have a need in the market here and we do not have the capacities to find the appropriate solutions. And therefore, since early this year, we joined GVI in order to access also startups in Israel in order to motivate them and to assist them practically to come to the market here, to find co-investors and market entry solutions, and also financial solutions. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Kobe, for inviting me here, and Andreas, who will also talk to you now, and wishing you all the best from Germany.
So thank you, Kobe, for participating to this great event. I'm very pleased to talk with you all. Quickly about myself, I have 20 years of experience as an engineer. I work in different industry. I started my career at Bosch. I hear also that we have some common background in the group. And I work also many years for a large consulting firm, Accenture, quite a lot in digital space. And I was also helping large corporations to develop the Open Innovation Program. I work also in the European Commission to help startups to get access to EU funds in France. So all of you recognize probably my accent. I am French, located in France in the Alps, not far from Geneva. And I am also part of some business angel networks in France, and also currently working with a company very specialized in open innovation, Nine Sigma. So we are helping corporations to access to different ecosystems. So I believe that with all of these experience, it would be great to contribute and help startups to access and develop a collaboration in different ecosystems, and very pleased to talk with you all today. So thank you again.
No, we don't hear you. Maybe we can move on to the direction.
So hello, is it my turn?
Yes, yeah.
So, good morning, everyone. This is okay, all right. So good day, everyone. My name is Claude Couper. I'm from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. We support companies with capital raising, business development, software development, and HR recruitment services. And also we're eco development company, supporting companies with exposure, corporate connections, and interviews. And looking forward to meet everyone, connect with everyone. And if you are seeking a market entry in the Netherlands, we're ready to help you. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Kobe, I don't have any chance to get your words.
What is it?
Andreas, you hear me? Gabi, maybe we can check Andreas instead. Something that yeah. We can move on to Valerie from Switzerland.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me. My name is Valerie. I'm based in Switzerland and Dubai. I have my background in wealth management and got into private equity. Assisted several startups there, either for an IPO, trade sale, or license deal. We are very strong in the life science sector. We are also having a Swiss company now, which got listed 2 years ago and is now part of the Vision UAE 2030. In general, we're happy to assist start and scale-ups which want to settle down either in Switzerland or the UAE. We have a very strong network there. And mainly we are focusing on health tech, biotech, life science, fintech, and AI. So if anybody is familiar with those sectors, or as I mentioned, want to settle down in the region from UAE and Switzerland, we're happy to help and looking forward to those exciting cooperations.
Thank you very much. Valerie, Lisa from Cyprus, can you hear me from Oslo?
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you for the invitation, Kobe. Nice to meet everybody. So I have studied politics, public administration, public policy in the UK, and then coming back to Cyprus, I joined a research company, and then since 2011 I joined Deloitte. So Deloitte in Cyprus has a dedicated innovation entrepreneurship center. I'm an expert in handling European funded projects and grants for public and private sector companies. And since 2018, Deloitte in Cyprus, together with the Bank of Cyprus, we have co-founded ARIS, which stands for a really inspiring space. ARIS is actually a physical co-working space as well as an accelerator. So it has a program that has been designed and is created by our Innovation Entrepreneurship Center and is for early stage startups which are interested in accelerating, entering the international market. And we have usually an open call for application at least once or twice a year. And we can support them through our team at ARIS, but also with an external network of mentors and collaborators like Kobe. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you're interested to collaborate with us and any of our startups. And you can also check our portfolio of, and our alumni startups and current residents on our website. So I'll just put it on the chat. And if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vikas from Poland.
Hi, Kobe. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. This is Vikas Malhotra. I am sitting in Warsaw. Recently set up a company called Maverick Nation. We are focusing on building the startup ecosystems in Poland, in the regions of Poland, not Warsaw really. And then we'll be expanding our ambit to other countries of Central and Eastern Europe and also Latin America. Right now, we are focusing on regional governments, how to help them build the ecosystem. And as part of that, working with investors and corporates in creating opportunities for startups that mainly dependent on government money so far in Poland. So we are trying to create opportunities for startups from the emerging world, Poland, CEE, and Latin America, so that they can grow in the region and they don't get addicted to grant money. Hopefully we will have a big community very soon because the company is just set up, and with your support and the support of your community, hopefully we will get there. Thank you.
Kobe, is it me, Imran? Yeah. My name is Imran from Azerbaijan, and I represent the Lotfizadeh Technology Center. This is co-working and accelerator. We started last year, and it's 350 spaces, desks, and we have several spaces now in Baku, Azerbaijan. And I have been working, I have been working in corporate-backed incubator for 7 years, and it's already 9 years with this. I've been mentoring in Swiss-based Seed Stars network, and I've been ambassador. And today we have been at the network of 2,000 startups I've been meeting with.
Thank you very much. You say you're on the line. If not my okay, you're on the line. Okay, Nina from Malta. You're on the line. Okay, is there any partners that would like to introduce themselves?
It's still a bit difficult to hear.
Yeah. Please rise from the United States, please. No. That's right.
Okay. Thank you all. I guess I'll go ahead and go. First off, thank you all so much. It's a pleasure to meet you all. And Kobe, thank you for the invitation. My name is Ryan Pierce. I'm based out of Nashville, Tennessee, instead of the United States. And I'm here on behalf of WeFunder. WeFunder is the #1 investment crowdfunding platform inside of the United States. We house a website that allows for founders to raise capital from absolutely anyone. So that could be both accredited investors such as angel, venture capital firms, and what have you, as well as non-accredited investors, which would include customers and the family and friends of the startup founders themselves. Our platform has served over 1,500 startups to date, and those startups have raised over $300 million through our website and have collectively raised over $5 billion in venture capital as after they're raised on WeFunder. I'm here today to connect with all of you and eventually support GVI startups and partners in helping founders scale and raising capital inside of the United States through our platform, leveraging our network of existing investors and supporting those founders as they're looking to raise capital and grow. So it's a pleasure to be here. Of course, I'll be sure to link my email as well as the website of WeFunder below. And I hope to collaborate with you all and support founders continually. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Evan from Gibraltar. Can you hear us?
Yeah, this is Andreas from Germany, whereas Klaus is our market expert here. I'm his counterpart as in finance and controlling. I also have a lectureship at the university in Germany and I read investment and financing. In particular, I support startups to get their own business fly and make sure that they won't crash further further down the way. I arrange financing in the form of investors, private investors, venture capital, and state subsidiaries, among others. And in particular, I do also the investor and finance preparation. That means finance planning over the next 12 months and 4 years, liquidity control, finding the optimized financing structure, and accompany the growth throughout the journey of the new company. We are always looking for interesting projects, in particular in the medical and health sector, in Industry 4.0, and in the energy and education area. These are the points of emphasis, or the industries of emphasis nowadays. All the very many thanks to Kobe for inviting me here, and it's really nice to meet you and hear from you about your activities. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Evan Shai. I'm basically, I head up an innovation consultancy firm called Benefit Business Solutions, where we assist companies to grow in innovative ways. We are actually based on the famous Rock of Gibraltar, which is actually one of Europe's best kept secrets. I think basically to say, for companies that are coming here, startups especially, the main advantages here are speed to market, high standard of service providers, and basically the most attractive tax regime in the whole of Europe. So we are basically here to make all this magic happen. And we're very happy to work with Kobe and the rest of the network. So thank you very much, Kobe, for hosting us here today. And we would be happy to assist any company who may be interested in going into the bigger market via Gibraltar first.
Thank you very much, Evan. We are moving on to Africa and Singapore, starting from Cape Town, from Nigeria. Please introduce yourself. Can you hear me? There is any participant from Africa that would like to introduce yourself?
Maybe I can go now.
Yes.
Can I go now?
Yes, please. Yes, start. Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, start. You. Okay. Is there any partners from other places that did business on?
Hi everyone, can I go now?
Yes, please.
Okay, my name is Pascal, and I'm from Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian lawyer. I run a startup consultancy firm and brand room, where we help startups with digital marketing in exchange for equity and a lot of other incorporation processes we help them to do. So looking forward to partnering with a company in launching a venture capital fund here, specifically for Nigerian startups. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gabby, can you please step less from the table? Yes, do you hear us?
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you for this opportunity, Kobe. Pietro Lanzarini from Italy. I am a founder of 2 different startups and well connected in the Italian ecosystem. The focus is to implement GVI strategy for the Italian landscape in the 2 sense. Giving the facility to foreign startups for a soft landing in Italy to connect with the Italian VCs and Italian corporates, and also enabling Italian startups to reach out through the membership with all the other GVI's international partners. So we have a long experience in the Italian ecosystem, and we are also about to establish an Italian accelerator focused on IoT, mechatronics, data, and AI. So happy to connect with everybody and to bring our expertise of the Italian ecosystem to the GVI global picture.
Thank you very much, Pietro. Let's communicate.
Sorry, I didn't hear, Kobe.
No, I just invite let's communicate. Let's, do you hear us?
Not very clearly, Kobe. Sorry.
Let's, do you hear us?
Hello, Kobe.
Yes, hear you and see.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Hi, my name's Les Green. I'm from the London aspect of GVI. We are a corporate finance and fundraising firm. So we support businesses which are coming out of startup and then moving into scale up. And so most of the fundraisers we do are in the $1 million to $10 million range. We have a particular feel for technology companies, although not exclusively. And we do help businesses a great deal with the corporate finance aspects. So we can help them bring the documentation together that's necessary, and also to put the financial models in place. So that's a great part of what we do. And clearly that's necessary when you're then going to talk to the investment community. We have about 200 different funds that we know in the UK and Europe. As you probably know, the UK is a particularly hot place for raising capital, but we have connections in Europe too. So that's a little bit about us. We've completed our first transaction recently with Kobe. So we managed to raise from the London market half of a $7 million raise for one of the companies within GVI. So we've got at least got some success under our belt already.
It was a very good starting point.
Thank you, Kobe.
Thank you very much. A lot of pleasure. I just want to summarize this session by that the GPI actually built in the last 2 years 30 partners from all over the world, because we saw that the most challenging approach we can see in our mind is how to take startups from one place to another. It's not only to raise money. To raise money for startups is something that is very, very hard. But in the end of the day, I saw a lot of cases that startups after 18 months collapsed because they didn't know how to reach out to potential clients. So we decided to make something that is not so familiar. We are believing in product marketing. What we want to do is take the company's clients to generate revenue for the clients, and then to bring the companies to the point that they can be much more attractive to potential investors. This is one strategy. The second strategy is to help the investors to be their advisors, to help them to make a decision in which companies to invest. It's not only to be a finder, to connect companies to investors, it's actually to understand precisely what the investors do, what is looking for, what is the risk that they try to avoid. So we hold the sticks from 2 points. On one side, we help the startups, we nurture the startups with our services, we try to bring them to the real market with all the partners that we have here. So we actually prove product market fit before we raise the fund for the startups. We come to our investors in a position that we can prove that the technology is fit to Amazon in Brazil, or to us in UK, or to Address in Germany. And then after we can prove that the product is relevant to the market, then we approach our investors to bring the capital to boost the company's power. This is the second strategy. The third strategy, and I talked with some guys on break, the European market is one of the best places for innovation. Most of the Israeli companies trying to bring their products to the US. And this is very, very challenging. It costs a lot of money. It's very tough market. But the European market is that we have now. The Israeli startups and foreign startups from other places doesn't know. The secret is that we have a lot of capital now, especially because of COVID. We have a lot of capital in the European market, much more than startups. And this is the reason that they come to Israel. The innovation minister from Poland come to Israel and say you have the opportunity to raise up to €5 million for innovation. 80%. And you just need to bring 20% private capital. From where we bring the 20% capital? From GPI network. So we hold, on one side, we hold stick on the European market. We try to bring the public fund from Poland, from Austria, from Germany. And from the other way around, we try to bring with our partners the holding the license of GPI in their market to bring the 20% up. And in this way, once we make private, we give to the private capital and to the private investors to bring high leverage. In the first time they invest in the company. This is the second opportunity that we have. And the last thing that I want to mention is that actually all our partners from all of these places, and this is the most important thing from all this lecture, from this seminar, they represent the needs of the market. And once we understand what is the needs in Poland, what is the needs in the UK, and why we should invest in fintech companies in Switzerland and not in Krakow, because Krakow is not a place to invest in fintech, but in Industry 4.0 is much more efficient, is much more relevant. So who give us the needs? Who represent the needs? These guys. They give us the needs, the requirements, the challenges, and now it's much easier to bring the startups with their solution to the market. And this is the way that we are working. And because my approach is take the companies from day one from Israel and to open their subsidiary in Europe. I couldn't ask them to do that if I'm not doing that myself. And this is the reason that I moved from Israel to Europe, and I'm living 4 years in Europe. So thank you very much for thank you very much for this seminar. Thank you very much, guys, for your introduction. Very short, but I think the message passed to all the audience. And by the way, it was a very good opportunity for all of you to meet each other. Thank you. Yes, please, you can open the camera for a nice talk. Christian, Nicolas, Cedric, Sebastian, you are here? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Sebastian, why didn't you introduce yourself? Maybe you want me to say something about it.
Because I don't hear you very well, and actually I don't know you call me.
You invited me to come to a very big event in Poland, so I give you the pleasure.
Yes, but today I'm just listening and have a look how you're working with each other, so you know. Next time I will be more effective.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So again, thank you very much for your time today. I think it was wonderful today. I would like again to thank you, Yaron and your team, and also Daphne and Dov for this Zoom festivities that we have here. And we have a very fancy camera from one side and wireless microphone that capture everything speaking here. Discuss with them as well. And we're still here. If you have any questions, we'll be glad to assist you with that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kobe. It was a bit challenging, but we did it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kobe. And we keep in touch for the next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Kobe.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, bye-bye.
You're with the
תודה רבה. מעולה.
לא, בכלל, נגיד הוא מאוד פשוט. זה מה שאני מחפש.
אני יכול לקחת את הסטיק. את הסטיק.
קובי?
הכל בסדר.
Mama.
I can send you all the information via the email. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yeah. Why not? Let's do it. Yeah. You're very welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
עכשיו אני מתעסקת בהעברות בנקאיות, מתעסקת בהעברות בנקאיות. עכשיו אני תלויה בשימון, שיעשה לי העברה לבד, ובדרך מתקשר אליי, שימון לא עושה את העברה. זה לא כמו איילה. למה? אבל שימון זה לא איילה, שאתה נותן לה משימה ועושה את זה 5 דקות. אז הנה, עכשיו אני שולחת מייל, כי זה למזל, ולא נעים לי. הנה, אני שולחת מייל. לא יודעת, עכשיו אני חושבת, היי ציון, אני עושה העברה ביציאה. כי זה מה שאתה אמרת, אתמול דיברנו על זה בטלפון, שכחת? אבל אמרת ששימון יבצע את העברה, שאלתי אותך אתמול. על מה אתה רוצה? זה לאט לבצע? זה לא מתחשבן? אני יכולה, כן, אני מתקזז מול מרקט, טוב, בסדר. אוקיי, אז מה, רשמתי איילה נבצע העברה בהתאם, אני מתקזז מול מרקט. כתבתי אותו. אין בעיה, בסדר. פשוט אתה מבין, אני לא רוצה לעמוד מולו ככה,
כן, רציתי... באמת, מדברת.
מה אתה איתה? הכנתי לך פה מדבקה, שאתה תגיע, בסדר, פשוט איילה, אתה יודע, אני אומרת, זה לא חדש, ככה אני מתנהלת. ראיתי, פשוט זה יום. ככה מתי מתנהלת. טוב, סבבה, אני טובה מאוד מסודרת, יאללה, הייתי למעלה, מחר אנחנו נוכל ביחד, מחר די, רגע, מחר אוכלים ביחד או מה? מחר אוכלים?
מה מחר?
שלישי, יום רגיל, יום עבודה, אוכלים ביחד, אבא שלי עובר לבדוק, אתה יודע? ברגל, נפל, שברת באותו, לא אמרתי, לפני שבוע, היה בבית, עכשיו אני עולה לקרמל.
אבל מתי ראיתי אותו? מתי הוא היה פה?
שבועיים, שבוע אחרי, נסעו כל החבר'ה לצפון, עשו טיול, ירד מהאוטובוס, הלך 10 צעדים, החליק, נפל, קיבל מכה בפרסון, נעול נפו אותו לזיר, נפל, גבס, עכשיו הוא בתורמן.
אוי ואבוי,
אני עולה עכשיו בתורמן.
מה זה ניתוח קשה כאילו?
לא, זה משהו לא מסובך בכלל, יש לי שכן, יש לי שכן שהוא עובד שם.
יש לי כרטיס, אני רוצה לשלוח לך חומרים על המוצרים שלנו, שתעבירי פשוט. יש לך... כן. תשמידי את המייל ואת הטלפון.
מה את אומרת?
לא ידעתי. טוב, אבל תמשיך.
זהו, בסדר, אז מחר נעשה את זה, נפגש מחר בצהריים. בסדר?
תודה רבה.
ביי. ביי. תודה.
ולבוא ולהגיד רגע, כל האינפורמציה הזאת, זה שילוב, אז אותם שני כאלה שידברו ביניהם, אפשר לעשות את הבסיס.
כאמור.
לראות כל אחד מול הרשויות שלו, ויודע לחבר את מה שקורה לך, כי הנה תעשינו משהו, איזשהו כך תתבצע את זה, כן, ואז כל חברה שומרת על העיר, בצורה מלאה, לא ביניהם, ואז התקין יכול איכשהו לחבר את הדבר. כן, אני מאוד התרשמתי. זה היה שלי, זה עכשיו אני לא צורר.
היה מעניין, אני לא הייתי כל הזמן, כי הייתי למעלה אצל איתן גם, אנחנו גם עובדים. היה נראה מעניין, הכל היה בסדר?
כן, תשמעי, אישרו לי נכון אתמול 20 דיפלומטים, ראית כמה היו.
כמה היו יותר, לא?
לא, דיפלומטים.
כמה היו?
דיפלומטים היו 7. סרי לנקה, מיינמר, קולומביה.
אבל מה, איזה התחייבות יש להם שאומרים שהם באים, אתה לא יכול לדעת.
יש כמה שתרצו, יש לי פה תשובה, אני צריך לצאת, אני לא אוכל להגיע.
אני מכירה את זה, גם לנו היה את זה, היה לנו פה אירוע ביום חמישי, גם חלק מהאנשים אישרו לי הגעה ולא הגיעו.
התשובה האמיתית זה חיפה.
כן, זה קורה, היה כאן אירוע ביום חמישי, אירוע גדול. חלק מהאנשים, אתה יודע, אתה לא יכול לסחוב אנשים באוזן.
ברור.
אנשים יש להם, או שיש להם מילה או שאין להם, אתה לא יכול.
אחלה, חיברתי את איתן ומישהו מהעיתון מהרדיו המקומי פה.
אוקיי.
תבואי לעשות את זה. אוקיי. מקווה שיצליח.
תקבל איזה 30 ועכשיו לך תחפש מתוך ה-30 האלה זה יש לעזור של הקשר בין המדינה, ההוא מניגריה, כן יש ברמה הטכנית לצוותים, אבל אין איזה פלטפורמה עסקית בין המדינות שיכולות לחבר את הכספים האלה, או שאצלו זה 30%, אבל גם זה בסוף בסוף אתה מקבל מין רייטינג כזה, שבו הקריטריונים או
מה? אפשר לזיז הצפה. לא דחוף, תעשי רק מה שדחוף. נעשי רק הצפות ככה. להחליף פרחים, זה דברים שפרחים, אז תעשי מה שדחוף, מה שלא דחוף לא צריך. להסעים אותם למחר. לא, את הפרחים לא להשאיר למחר. את זה לא דחוף, מה שדחוף זה המטבח, שירותים, דברים האלה. רואה כאן יש סלט, אתה מה? יותר הצד העסקי, יותר הצד יש צורך, יש מה לעשות עם זה, ולא רושם למזדמנים? כאילו לא רושם למזדמנים? אתה יכול, כאילו אתה לא יכול ללחוץ תקנת כרטיס? לא רושם? אתה לא יכול, טוב אני אתקשר. ביי. את יכולה לפתוח לנו שוב בעצמאות, בבקשה? כן. תודה רבה. ביי, תודה רבה.
לירון, תודה רבה. בשמחה. באמת היה מקצועי ו...
יופי.
תבואי לווינה.
וואו, כן.
וינה
מה עם
זוכר?
הקורונה?
לא יודע, אמרו לי שכולם הסיפור. Can you please explain the investment?
Yes, we couldn't. Exchange our cards and introduce ourselves.
Yes, I'll give you my culture.
Thank you. I already talked to the partner about starting innovation center in Sri Lanka. So
we are with you.
How can you?
Let's do that like we did with Myanmar.
Right.
The same
But
process.
I understand Myanmar project is now
is pending.
Yeah,
pending.
But
So the political situation.
yeah. So Sri Lanka, we have to do fast because I have only one year and few months in my position here.
Yes.
So before I finish my term here, I want to do this.
And you are staying in Israel?
Yes.
New Jersey?
Yes.
So let's do that.
So
let's raise the boat.
We already discussed about setting up a meeting.
Amazing.
I will visit one of these days. You will not be on.
No, I not be. I'll be here. For 1 month. Now, Israel for 2 weeks.
Right.
Then
So you live there?
Yeah.
Yes. But you are in Israel.
No, I'm living there and I'm coming to Israel only for 4 days in 3 months.
So you are Australian citizen?
Light.
So not
yet.
Israel?
Not yet.
Not in Israel?
Israel. I'm Israeli, but after 3 months, because I don't have a visa,
right.
I need to return to Israel for 3 months
okay.
for 1 day, and then I can come.
Okay. So and there is you are not only to I believe to startup. You are generally you have an investment fund, right?
Yes.
So you invest in other ventures, not only in startups,
in venture capital.
Oh, thank you so much for explaining about super. Oh, let's do that. Let's talk about the supercomputer. Let me finish with this. Sure. So again, you are with WhatsApp, right?
Yes.
So we have a big project, real estate project.
Yes. Real estate is not my
no, yeah, but we have created an island, artificial island. Yes, the government's idea is to build a brand new smart city.
Yes.
It has like we reclaim land and we have created 269 hectare land, island.
Yeah.
And the idea is I will be very brief. Recreate Singapore or Hong Kong in South Asia. So now it is open to foreign investors.
Can you send me the
I will send you.
Yes.
I will send you. How about WhatsApp?
WhatsApp is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm always available.
Sure.
WhatsApp, not in the Austrian. Not in the Austrian, in the
Israel number. Yeah, yes. I'll send you on my way to Tel Aviv. I will send you all the details.
Okay, fine.
That's it. Yeah, it will be like it is called Colombo Port City, and it's basically a financial city, smart city.
Okay, let's
I'll
consider that. Thank you very much.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Yeah. The land on island I'm talking about is here. And it is connected to, the mainland. It's like a peninsula. Yeah. Can you tell me so that I can try to regenerate? Okay, we will forget about issues. I will try other ways. Which is a nice man. Okay, I just look, my mobile number is not here. I can give you 1 second. But there is a real green one, yeah. And there's a lot of hours. Of course. We certainly find Amazon, they give you like three, they give you three trial periods. But it's a little bit like drugs. No. The first time you sorry. The first time you could say that the company and then suddenly free. That's what this is that's exactly by the way, microphone. Oh, this is microphone. No, AWS comes in mic and they do the same thing. Their biggest threat is it's not Windows now there's a few issues. First, now, there's so much need for it. Even if you do need
So first of all, we get immediate third is no issues of latency. So I was told that it's going to
So they are basically other companies partner. Okay. But we are so insist on because it doesn't be bonus, but thank you. Priyanka, do you have a you have been to Sri Lanka? I've been to Sri Lanka. No, I haven't. I've been right. Yeah. So I'm going with
Mm-hmm.